Hi, I'm Terri McCarthy, and I'm going to be talking to you about soldering tools that we have available to us to make your soldering setup successful. One of the tools that we use often is this tripod. The tripod comes in two different heights. This is the lower height, which I prefer because I'm very tall. It comes also with the screen. When I'm in the studio, I take my screens and I bind them to the tripod so that they can't shift on the top of the tripod, and it gives you a little safer surface to work on. The other thing all jewelers use are soldering picks, and we have three here. This is a wood soldering pick, and this has a nice sturdy tip to it, so if I have to go in and press down on a piece to solder it and hold it still, this stays very firm and straight, and you have a lot of control with it. We have a titanium solder pick here, and this is really nice because it has an anti-roll end to its handle. It's a nice sturdy titanium pick, so if I'm soldering gold and my gold solder melts, I can take this pick and I can drag my solder through my joint wherever it needs to go, and the solder will not stick to this pick. And it doesn't matter if you're working with silver solder or if you're working with your gold solders, the solder doesn't stick to your titanium picks. This one is really a nifty little soldering pick. It has this shield on it, and a lot of times when we're working with layers of heavy metal, we have to use a lot of heat to get that metal evenly hot and to have the solder flow. So this shield protects my hands. This again is a titanium pick, so again I can draw my solder through a joint, and it's a very sturdy pick. It also comes with an extra tip, which is nice because eventually our soldering picks do get a little worn. The other thing that we constantly use is our striker. Strikers are wonderful tools to have to start our torches. I don't know if you've ever used the hand strikers that you have to pull, but as our hands get tired, those are pretty hard to strike to get our acetylene torches to run. The other thing that we all use is solder. Solder comes in easy, medium, and hard. This is paste solder, and what's really nice about paste solder is it has a binder with your solder and your flux in it, so that when you apply just a little bit of this, you don't have to add extra flux, and it gives you a little bit more control over where your solder is going to flow. I like to mark the ends of my syringes so that I don't have to put my readers on to read the label. The other thing we use a lot are cross-lock tweezers, and cross-lock tweezers have this fiber grip handle, which is really nice because if you're soldering and heating for a long period of time, when you go to pick up a steel tweezer that does not have this on, you have to be really careful or you'll burn your hands. I like it because it has a nice amount of tension, and so if I want to pick something up and hold it for soldering, I can. It comes also in a curved end, which is nice. Sometimes we want to have things like this, and sometimes we want to use it like this to hold something down to a soldering surface. Everybody needs a copper tongs in their studio because when we quench and pickle our metal, you can't reach into your pickle pot with a regular steel crosslock like this because this is a ferrous metal, and you will copper plate your pieces that are already in the pickle. So you need to reach into your pickle and pull things out of the pickle pot with your copper tongs. The other thing that I always have at my soldering bench when I'm soldering is one of these little stainless steel tweezers. In fact, when my students start with me, I make sure that they have one, because once you cut little solder chips, they're very hard to pick up with a brush and place them. People that are well versed in soldering have no problem doing that, but when you're learning or you have a lot of solder pallions to place on the inside of the bezel or a join, these pick up those little pieces. They're also stainless steel, so if a student accidentally sticks them in the pickle, it does not contaminate what's in your pickle pot because it is stainless steel. The other thing everybody needs is a flux brush. And flux we use in different forms. It comes in a liquid and it comes also in a paste flux. And when we're not using our solder paste, then we're using pallions of solder. When we're using pallions of solder, you have to add the flux or your solder cannot flow. It keeps your metal clean and it also allows the solder to flow. And a good snips is another thing that you need. Wire solder is very springy, and if you don't have a really sharp snip, it just kind of will bend your solder and it won't cut it off into little chips. Which brings us to the next little tool that you must have. Some little tray. It can be glass, it can be plastic, just something with a little edge to it so that when you are cutting your pallions of solder, your flux can be in that tray and you can flux your solder at the same time that you're going to flux your piece that you're going to solder. Another tool that's now available, which is really lovely, is the solder cutting pliers. It has a small hole on the side of it, and as all you have to do is put your wire solder in there. It will hit the stop on this side of the pliers, and then when you squeeze it, it cuts the pallions off. So if you have your little flux tray there, you slide it in, you snip, it slides in, you snip, you slide it in, it snips. And you can repeat that process, but it makes the most lovely size of little tiny pallions. So you can use a lot of little pallions on a project, or sometimes you just need one. One of the things that I use all the time are these little clip-on magnifiers. I have optivisors also, and I have optivisors with a loop. However, when you're soldering, they stick out in front of your face enough that I've had students bend down to get close to their work and they've actually singed the edge of their optivisors. With these, they clamp onto your glasses so that you can see, you have magnification, but then you can flip them up and they're out of your way. And my students will constantly see me walk around the studio like that because I always have a cotton apron on, and it's handy to just reach down and get my magnifiers when I need them. Some of the products that I use on a fairly regular basis, when you're soldering and you've got tiny pieces close together and you're afraid of melting down, say, a very fine bezel, as you're soldering a bale on, I encourage my students to use this heat block. And the heat block is a putty-like material, and what it does is it keeps the surface of your metal cool. The downside is if you have it too close to what you're trying to solder, it also will cool your seam enough that the solder won't flow. So you have to use it on the edge of an area to cool down what you don't want to melt down, but you want it protected. And this material, once you solder and you quench your work, you should wipe this off before you put your metal into the pickle because it'll just leave a gummy mess in your pickle. So just clean it off first. This is also a nice product. This is a Boric Soldering Dip. And so if you're working with sterling silver and you want to prevent a little cupric oxide from forming, you can dip your metal first in the Boric Soldering Dip, and it helps protect your metal so that it's not so dark and it does not have to be in the pickle so long after you've soldered. I also use this product when I'm soldering gold. Gold always gets dipped in a preparation solution so that it stays clean and you keep the color and the clarity of your gold. This is boric acid. Boric acid is another solution that you can use for soldering dip. And with this boric acid, when you open it up, it's a powder inside. And so what you'll need is a glass container with a tight-fitting lid. You put some boric acid in that container, and then you will add denatured alcohol to it. So with this product, you would open the jar and you would swish your piece of metal that you're going to be soldering around in the jar. With this one, because it's got denatured alcohol in it to dilute it, you'll then want to put your piece on a soldering board and light your torch and burn off the alcohol, and then you can proceed with placing your solder and soldering. This is your Handi paste flux. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. This is really good for using when you're soldering brass or bronze or copper or silver, and you can use it with gold. And the Handi Flux, I find, just holds up longer. Your copper is oxidizing so quickly, and so are your brasses and your bronzes. And so it keeps the metal clean long enough to allow your solder to flow.
Visit our Learning Center at cooltools.us for more cool jewelry making videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to sign up for our email list to be the first to hear about new videos, new products, and other cool stuff from Cool Tools.